Folks, welcome back to the PT on Ice podcast. I am thrilled to be having this conversation with Dr. Britt Lademann. Britt has been on ice faculty for many years and specializing specifically in spinal thrust manipulation. She teaches that course nationwide, and what's so cool to be able to say that is she teaches that course. I think for those of you who have been around the ortho space and certainly the spinal manipulation space for a number of years, it tends to be dominated by male instructors, and that tends to come with a certain kind of body type as well, which might not be as approachable technique-wise or cue-wise as a smaller female operator. So it's been amazing to watch Britt travel the country and help such a wide variety of people that might not have felt as comfortable connecting with these techniques until she showed that number one, it's possible, and number two, exactly how to do it. So for those of you especially that might be a smaller operator or a female operator looking to specialize in spinal manipulation, you're going to love all the gems that Britt Lademann has to share. Enjoy the episode. Well, Britt, welcome back to the podcast.
Thank you. Glad to be back.
We're going to stay on the skiing theme because, I mean, we're right on the cusp. It's almost Thanksgiving. Mm-hmm. I know we're not supposed to date these things, but here we are. Yeah. And we're going into another ski season. What is your favorite mountain? I mean, you're as passionate about skiing as anybody I know. What is your absolute favorites? If you could only ski one hill for the rest of your career, what's it going to be?
Oh, it's such a good, hard question. I've skied a lot of what's good in America.
Yeah.
Not everything, but a lot. Enough to have some feelings about it. I have to say, Mount Batch has won me over. Growing up in North Carolina, yep. We got some ski hills out there.
Sure.
They're hills. They're a little slushy and muddy.
Sure.
So we always went out west. So Colorado, Utah. My parents met at Keystone. They met skiing.
Okay.
So it wasn't a choice for me. Yeah.
You were born into it.
We were born into it. I was Telluride was my first stop.
What a great first stop.
And to be fair, I haven't been back as an adult, so there's some considerations there. But since moving to Portland, don't come, it's terrible. But, we've got Mount Hood and we've got Bachelor. So I've got a mountain, a minute 20 from me. Mount Hood, it's got 3 resorts on it. Yeah. The ski life in Portland is fantastic.
Yeah.
Mount Batch is a 360 volcano. It's national forest all around it, no development. And the tree skiing there is the best tree skiing I've ever had. And it's not on those lists when you're looking at what's the best tree skiing. Mount Batch is the best. The different sides of the mountain have different vibes.
Yep.
If it's a good day, you can pop over to the backside. There's a catch trail 360 around that mountain. You can't get lost. There's some spots that are sketchy, right? It's a volcano.
Yeah.
But if it's not too crowded, Mount Batch is a spot. You can just cook until you're exhausted on like Northwest Chair.
Yeah. And
if you want moguls, great. If you want big forest and you want to get lost and just feel like you're the only person out there and kind of still feel safe because you're going to find that catch trail, that's the mountain.
Love that.
Yeah, but don't
How far of a commute? Yeah.
Bend is terrible.
For sure. How far is that from where you live? That's a little bit of a haul.
It's a bit of a haul.
Couple hours?
It's about 3.5. Yeah. So it's a weekend trip.
But not a horrible spot to go for a weekend.
No. And I mean, I've been here in Denver and tried to get to some mountains and it's taken me 3 hours. So
we've got our problems.
Yeah, for sure. But like hitting up Timberline for the vibes.
Yep.
Above the tree line skiing, up onto the glacier, aesthetically breathtaking, beautiful. I mean, I love teaching people how to ski on Timberline. And then Meadows has got a lot more varied terrain. Ski Bowl is probably actually what I'm going to hit up this year. That's a smaller little resort a little bit lower down the mountain. Nice. It's got some sick terrain. Yeah. A lot of kids go there night skiing. So that's what I'm going to be doing this season. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Britt, let's jump into it.
Okay.
You have been teaching now with Ice Physio for quite a long stretch. And one of the cool things is that you teach spinal thrust manipulation, which, if we're being totally transparent, has been a bit of a bro show over the past forever.
Yeah.
Can you just speak to, just open up the conversation around kind of your thoughts entering that space, even knowing like this generally is not where you find a small female operator. And it's been a space that you've owned so awesomely. So I guess just kind of speak to your feelings around that, and then we'll jump in and talk about some mechanic stuff.
For sure. It's funny. I think like I met you in 2017 at a lumbar course, kind of knocked my socks off. It's like, oh, we can have clinical reasoning framework and be passionate and have this blend of like movement and manual therapy love.
Yeah.
And then I met Justin shortly after.
Yep.
And I'm like, oh, he's a small dude.
Totally.
He's got pretty small hands.
No offense, but he'll admit that.
No offense.
Yeah.
And holy shit, what a weird little sport this is.
Yeah.
Spinal manipulation.
Yeah.
So the competitive just athlete in me connected with, I was like, well, as far as manual therapy goes, this is pretty fun.
Yeah.
And yeah, I don't see any ladies out here doing this. And I remember early days, maybe the first few times I was hanging out with you, going to some lumbar courses, and you were like, Britt, why aren't there more women coming up to me and talking to me in classes?
Yeah, because from my side, all of these dudes would rush up to me after the end of every course. Hey, I want to teach. I'll do it. But it was never.
I
the
worked
ladies.
up the courage that first course. I was like, just introduce yourself to him. Just say hi. And you were like on your phone. And I was like, hi, my name's Britt. Like, nice to meet you. Thanks. Yeah. And I like ran away. And I think I don't know, maybe you sent me like a Facebook message or something back in the day, and you were like, hey, you sought me out a little bit because I know you were watching the bro show happen.
Yep.
And we had those conversations. And I think one of the things we talked about on that long first car ride to Manhattan, Kansas.
Yes.
Where you were cooking on the ice.
Throwback.
Yeah, you made a couple people throw up their pizza that course, I think.
Sure.
It's pretty funny. That was a great first course.
Oh, man.
But you're like, yeah, I don't understand why more women aren't coming and talking to me or hanging out after courses.
Yep.
And I was like, man, Jeff, let's unpack that a little bit.
Yeah.
And we talked a little bit about, who's taking care of the kids after the course and that sort of thing.
Yep.
But I think one of the things it came down to was representation matters.
Yep.
And when it comes to like, who do I see doing this? And why aren't more women seeing themselves or even thinking about, I could do this? Where are the women ortho clinicians teaching these courses?
Yeah.
And I mean, it might be as simple as that. I've certainly felt like, well, I don't see myself up there.
Yep.
Maybe I see a not huge dude doing this. That's exciting. Like
Right.
maybe there's some potential for me. And maybe the insecurity I feel isn't the physical parameters I've been given, but maybe more of that. Like, I don't see any women teaching this.
Yep.
So why would I think I could do this?
And it's so interesting because, like you said, representation matters so much.
It does.
Early on, Ice Physio was a pack of guys that were doing these courses. In the moment we got a few strong women in faculty, everything. Last year we tipped over. We're 52% female and 48% male.
Yeah.
And it was all we had to do was get a couple strong females in lead roles. And I think women saw themselves in there, and everything naturally evolved to like this beautiful mix. Broadly speaking, but in the ortho, especially the thrust manipulation domain, that has been, like you said, a challenge for every company. I think every school, everywhere you look, it's guys teaching thrust manipulation. So what made you say, I'm gonna do this?
I had some good dudes in my corner, you and Justin, who saw potential and told me that there's potential there.
Yeah.
And then, being a competitive person and being a person who's never liked being told what I like or don't like or shouldn't do based on my gender. I was like, all right, let's see what we can do
Some
here.
natural pushback was living in there.
It was ready.
Yep.
And then I think it did still take that door being opened.
Yeah.
And you reaching out and Justin seeing my potential and being excited about that and hyping me up. And that's still kind of what I think about when I'm teaching is who's less likely to be confident in my courses. It's women often.
Yeah.
Guys can be a little overconfident.
Yep.
And I think women can be a little underconfident, and not always, but I still think that's something that I think about now.
Yeah.
And so I had the competitiveness and the curiosity and the desire to do more, and it did take a door getting opened. And it took a lot of coaching I think, and communication with me and Justin and you and me early on, kind of developing the confidence.
Yeah.
And I think that was important. And that was a barrier.
What's so cool is how many times I've heard, I can't even tell you how many times I've heard, it was so cool. And people, we will forget, it'd be years ago, and they'll say, it was so cool that a gal taught that thrust course.
Yeah.
They're always talking about you. And it's so neat to hear, like, it's just refreshing. Especially, I think, for ladies who go to the course. They're like, God, that was so cool because she understood, where I'm coming from.
Yeah. And I think it's easy, there's so many barriers to, like, not just getting good at doing manips, but using it in the clinic. And we could talk about that for 10 podcasts.
Yeah.
But it's easy to think that some of these barriers are physical, especially when a larger dude has designed a lot of these techniques.
Yeah.
And so even the technique selection itself becomes a barrier because maybe the old school technique selection has leveraged mass over anything else.
Yep.
And leveraged like mass and body position.
And limb length, right?
And
like,
limb length
yeah.
and wingspan in a way where I'm like, well, what the heck? Like, just do better is what I'm getting? Or like, well, just practice it more. I'm like, I can't grow my arms.
Totally.
Right? But seeing like,
Can you give an example of that, Britt? Like a technique where you're like, well, that's not possible for anyone who's not 6 feet tall with long arms.
Right.
That one's not going to be a go ahead. Can you speak to maybe a technique and how you've worked around that or modified that?
Yeah, so when we think about a lot of the techniques where either like it's a wingspan issue, like I'm reaching around a patient for a supine thoracic technique.
Yeah, so you're supposed to go all the way around from the far side of the table.
And lean on them and make some noise is kind of historically what's been happening.
Sure.
Instead of, so not just the wingspan, but then do I have anything left over to be athletic here and deliver a quick thrust? And sometimes if it's a guy teaching it, maybe there wasn't anything athletic there. It was just their reach and their body mass, and they just lean over someone and they zipper their spine and they like, look at me.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, I can't do that.
Yeah.
So even just how do we coach a technique from a smaller operator where, and I should be leveraging speed. We know that now based on the research.
Totally.
But just the whole perspective of coming at it athletically. And when you think about like playing sports, right? The smallest players out on the field are often the most athletic, doing the most. They figure out how to leverage their body, but they have to be more explosive. They have to fight a little harder. And that's true with this weird little sport of spinal manipulation too.
Yeah.
So I think the technique selection by itself, the other thing I think about is like, how many techniques out there where you just pull that patient's face right into your chest?
Totally.
Yeah. And as a dude, that's okay, maybe. It's still a little weird.
Sure.
But you're a woman in this class, and you're like, all right. I'm thinking about my classmates back in PT school that got docked for professionalism because they had a chest and it was close to the patient.
Yeah.
I'm like, when we have all these techniques that are built by dudes, it's not that's their experience. Maybe they're not going to think about that.
Sure.
But I'm thinking about it.
Yeah.
And that's another barrier in the way of me thinking, well, I can do this. And just trying to chase that, like, this is how it is. Here's the technique. It is what it is. And that might feel like impossible.
Yeah.
And coming to a point now where I'm like, really, there's so many, understand the physics of what we're doing.
Yep.
Understand your limitations and your skills.
Yep.
And adapt techniques to what works for you and your patient. And I used to get so, especially when I was ramping up teaching, so insecure about that larger patient on the table. Or like, God forbid there's a big person in the class and I have to demo on them.
Yeah.
What am I going to do? And the reality is what would I actually do in the clinic?
Yeah.
I'm not just going to like hope for the best and just jump on somebody. Like, I'm just going to pick a different technique. And so just letting that go away and thinking like, what can I actually do? It's okay if I only do this technique for somebody who's about my size.
Yeah.
And maybe I have a different option for somebody else. And just like having that understanding of here's what we're going for and you can now adapt it. I mean, that's happening and that's something we care about a lot in our course, not necessarily the status quo.
Yeah. It's so awesome that our minds have gotten a little bit liberated away from the biomechanics and the specificity, because that has enabled a lot of operators to be able to say, hey, I see what we're going for, but I don't necessarily have to be standing on that side.
Right.
I could come over. I think the dogmatic approach to manipulation going away has really opened up doors for this conversation.
It's huge. I mean, and it's something that when you look at who's doing manipulations really well in the healthcare space, and where are our patients going to get that treatment, it ain't us, or it hasn't been historically us.
Yep.
It's hopefully becoming us.
Yep.
When you look at how chiros manip, they're not like, well, this is the technique. They're like, we got 10 techniques, and there's 10 different bodies in here, and that's something that like I've learned from looking at how they manip and how other practitioners manip, and realizing like, man, there's so much out there. There's so many different ways to achieve the same goal, and that reduces barriers to entry.
For sure. And I really love what you touched on a second ago, because when it comes to outcomes, I think it's relevant. And that is, I don't want to say that having just leveraging mass is the wrong way to go about it, but we know that speed drives neurophysiological effect.
Yeah.
And there could be an argument here that the larger dudes never get as effective because they can leverage mass to make sounds. I mean, the patient thinks it quote unquote worked, but as a smaller operator, you don't have a mass option. Your option is speed, but speed drives neurophysiological effects. So you're actually chasing the thing that gets better outcomes.
Yeah, you know what I think about? I played rugby in college, and the nice thing about that sport, especially for women, is you need a bunch of different body types out there, and you will. And the people that can accelerate the best, that tackle the best, are often not our biggest players, because they have the mass. If they just get a good grab, they're going down, that person's going with them. If I'm small and I have to take down a bigger human, my athleticism has to be better. And it's not because even I've cognitively thought about it. I've adapted to the parameters given to me, and the parameters are I have to learn how to maximize my body to get the job done. And sometimes those bigger players on my team, those tall people, we really had to work on speed development because they got away with not having it. And I think that's the same thing with this.
I love that. And then, like you said, having modifications.
Yeah.
Like having 3 ways to address a given region with a high velocity technique, depending upon who happens to jump up on the table.
Right.
Do you all have that in the course? Like when you go through it, do you have for most techniques a couple different ways to address it mechanically?
We do, and we often have multiple techniques per region. The nice thing about looking at how the evidence has evolved over time and seeing that, once we started asking the question of maybe there's more than just range of motion and pain changing and like disability outcomes changing with manips, and we started asking what are all of these other neurophysiological mechanisms, and are they local or are they widespread? And now we have, we need so much more, but we have at least a sampler platter of research showing us that we have these very widespread going into the extremities or acting at the spinal cord or cortex level changes to muscle tone, to pain pressure threshold. And you start to think, maybe this isn't hyperspecific. And maybe I have like 3 or 4 different techniques that are in the same general region that I can maybe select based on my body type or the patient's preference. So within a specific technique, we have modifications. And as we're revamping our course for next year, we're thinking more and more about structuring that a little bit more, making sure those are maybe better articulated in our lab manual, that sort of thing.
Okay.
But we're also thinking about, clustering these zones. Here's a couple different techniques. And ideally, it's a mix of what's the best technique for me as the operator? Like, what can I do? And, like, what can the patient tolerate? Maybe if they don't tolerate a prone CTJ, they tolerate a seated lower cervical or an upper thoracic. And we're kind of thinking about, you got a couple different tools to hit this region. And that's really nice. And that's what you kind of develop over time, is you maybe take manip courses a few times and you get lots of reps on different bodies.
I love that idea, because historically it's kind of been like, hey, this is the manip for that area.
Yeah.
This idea of we want to manip that area, here's a progressive series of methods on how you might do so, depending upon patient irritability, depending upon body morphologies, here is a number of different ways to go about it. That is a very unique step, I think, in the thrust manipulation education space.
Yes. And, we've even gotten away from labeling like, this is not a C5 technique. In my head, I might be thinking C5.
Yeah.
And maybe I'm on C5.
Yeah.
But I'm thinking like, this is my mid-cervical region technique. This is my upper cervical region technique or techniques. And thinking about it like that, because the reality is when I have an irritable patient in an irritable zone, maybe I can't even get at that zone on day one, and I have to regionally treat around it and get closer to it.
Yeah.
But we know we're moving multiple joints. We know we're cavitating bilaterally. We know we're getting bilateral changes in muscle tone and pain pressure threshold.
Yeah.
So divorcing ourselves from hyper specificity also helps when we're thinking about just technique selection on different body types and different levels of symptom irritability.
Yeah. And I think it also helps in technique performance.
Yeah.
I've been in the game long enough to have pretty much someone from every school of manipulation thought do something to me personally from a thrust perspective. And I got to say, those that are the most caught up in biomechanics and specificity tend to have hands that feel the least therapeutic.
Yep.
And I don't think it's a skill issue.
No.
I just think if you're thinking about 9 steps that you're trying to hold and subtly, at some point, a level of tension develops in the system that is going to feel a lot different than someone who's got a bit more of a relaxed approach.
Totally. Yeah. Getting away from, I've got to like PA thrust everything.
Yeah.
Because we're not just thinking mobility.
Yeah.
Because it's not just about mobility. And sometimes it's not about mobility at all. Mobility tends to reset session to session. What doesn't reset often is like the multifidi stay turned on. Right. Some of the neurophys changes stay improved.
Yeah.
And it's a balance. It's like you said, it's not skill. Those people are very skilled in getting as specific as possible.
Totally.
But again, if I'm a patient, I don't know that you're on my C5. All I know is, do I hurt when you set me up or not?
Yeah.
And what we know, because our pain experience and our beliefs and our biases going in as a patient influence our outcomes a ton. Having a yucky thrust manip that was specific doesn't really matter if it was a yucky thrust manip. Yeah. And then I have a bad experience with thrust manipulation, and then I don't want to do that again. When in reality, it could be a great lever I pull, and maybe I think less about specificity, more about patient comfort. And there's a balance there.
Sure.
But we can't forget about patient comfort. And there's never a time where I'm like, but I really need to target this thing, and the patient's pain goes from a 4 to an 8, and I'm still sending it.
I'm going to blast
I
this.
can't override that pain experience.
Yeah.
And now I'm creating a negative association with manual therapy and manipulation.
I love that. And I love that you said, turns the multifidus back on. Like the philosophy has changed in the best way, because we know the benefits of exercise. And now we've taken this tool that used to be so steeped in these really detailed, and let's be honest, hypothetical, biomechanical,
confidently hypothetical.
That's a great way to say it. And now we know the way we can use this thing is the neurophysiological effect. We know it when someone's pain goes down, these muscles tend to turn back on, right? Some of that nociceptive inhibition goes away. And now we've got someone who's got more active musculature and a patient in less pain who's more willing to use that musculature. And now we're taking them from that treatment table right up into the rack, and we're doing a progressive overload that has long-term changes. And the combination of these two couldn't be more brilliant. But we've done better putting them together once we understood the actual neurophysiological mechanisms and got away from some of the biomechanical obsession.
100%. And as a young PT, I remember asking those questions, like that Biolowski why ask why mechanisms of manual therapy thing, like Jeff or Justin, well, does it even matter? It works.
Yeah.
Why do we need to know why it works? And that's, that's a normal question to have.
For sure.
But if I don't know what I'm doing, I don't know what I'm leveraging, I don't know what comes next, and I don't know what about what I just did helped my patient, right? And if I know now, hey, we just turned your quad on a little better because it's less pain inhibited.
Yeah.
And we got this regional effect from a lumbar manip.
Yeah.
Great. Now what do I do? I go use the quad that's turned on, and that helps with the spicy knee pain. But knowing why, and knowing that it's not just mobility, really opens up the door for use case.
For sure.
Yeah.
Let alone, I think about the times where we wouldn't have done it historically, where someone maybe is a bit more hypermobile, and now we realize like, oh man, what were we thinking? Like, what a great chance to amplify, if we're so worried about stability, to amplify active stability and turn on some of the muscles around the area. What a great tool, as long as we're not thinking that the only thing it does is increases segmental mobility.
Absolutely. Right, and like there's nothing to say that we can't thrust hypermobility. It's just an assumption based on what we think we know about what we're doing.
A confident hypothetical.
A very confident hypothetical.
That.
And man, don't we need more research in this space?
Yeah.
If it's about speed, thinking about like that hypermobile population, maybe we need to think about different technique selection. If the cavitation doesn't matter as much as we used to think it does, and it's about speed, is there a use case for a mid-range quick thrust?
Totally.
I don't know, but we should study that.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. We've talked a lot about speed in the episode, partly because we started off talking about how if you don't have mass, you're going to have speed.
Yes.
Partly because when you look at the research, it seems to indicate that speed is where you need to be anyways. How have you gotten better at it? For all the small operators out there who are like, man, I've stayed away from that space because I did kind of feel like it wasn't for me. She's crushing it in this space. How have you developed what is the most salient variable, and that is speed?
So many reps.
So many reps.
So
Tamir just getting worked over?
Tamir's done. Tamir's done with me.
I think all spouses hit that spot where it's like, I've given you what I got.
Yeah, Tamir's like, and when I'm like, hey, I learned a new thing, he's like, oh, God.
Yeah.
No.
They do get the worst of us from a manual therapy perspective.
And he's experienced it all. He's experienced it all. So, yeah, not just practicing on your spouse.
Yeah.
I think if we just look broadly at where PTs tend to struggle with thrust manipulation, and I'm thinking specifically, let's start with just kind of force development and speed with our T-spine and our lumbar techniques.
Okay.
Areas where we've been very gun shy
Yep.
on force development because we're scared of hurting people, and that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't do it, so we never get over that hump.
Yep.
If you have someone who's unconfident developing speed and force, you got to practice on an inanimate object.
Yeah.
You have to build your confidence. I'm not worried I'm going to hurt the table.
Totally.
Right? So get a bolster, get a soft foam roller, and practice just sending it without consequence. There's no way you can develop that confidence if every single time you're thinking about the varied level of irritable patient on the table.
Yeah.
So
Take away all those variables.
Got to start small.
Yep.
And just think like, let me think about one thing.
Yeah.
And that one thing is send it and work on just get that speed ramp up. Obviously, you're going to fine tune it and calibrate it, and then you're going to calibrate it on body to body.
Yep.
And in the reality is you're going to have a different level of force based on the human on the table, ideally.
Totally.
But I think for most of us, especially PT, if we look at our old school techniques about that maybe prioritize specificity over speed,
Yep.
or prioritize body mass over speed, those techniques can be slow, and they don't really leverage our body mass well. Certainly if you're small, they're not leveraging your body mass well. And so we have to rethink, like, what's the best way for me to develop speed as a small human? And I think the easiest place to start is picking a couple movement patterns and kind of shadow boxing it. If you can't demo it to yourself quickly, you're not going to do it quickly when there's a human in your hands. So for cervical, right? Like a lot of the speed with cervical is wrist and elbow.
Yeah.
It's not my trunk. When I think about what's the fastest joint I can leverage, my hip hinge is not as fast.
Get distal.
Yeah, exactly. Like think about how you throw a punch, right? It's not like my hips. It starts with my hips, but my elbow and my wrist accelerate those forces. And you can get your 10,000 reps in shadow boxing these techniques.
Yeah.
You just got to do it.
I love that.
And I think as an adult who's got a million things going on in your life, it's hard to prioritize the time to get those reps in, but that's really where the magic lies, especially with speed development.
And like you said, and I love that you said earlier on the show that like it is a sport, and what a unique part of physical therapy.
That's wild.
And if you're drawn to it, it can be addictive. I mean, it really is somewhere where you can get competitive.
For sure.
You know,
for better or for worse for our patients.
Better or for worse, for sure.
Yeah, like one thing I love to think about is like, all right, so what are our clinician biases about like cavitation.
Yeah.
What do we think? What do we know? And what do we actually believe?
Yeah.
And that's an important question to ask, because when I ask everybody, hey, does the pop matter? They're like, no. And I'm like,
research is clear. Yeah.
All right, so I'm going around the room and asking you about it, and you're like, I didn't get it or I got it. Well, what are you talking about? Yeah. And the reality is, and someone in my course this weekend said it, is like, I know it doesn't matter, but I don't believe it. Who's that pop for?
Yeah. Yeah.
And is it for me
For sure.
or is it for my patient? Because I promise you, your patient doesn't matter it doesn't matter if you get off the table and you retest the thing they came in with, that was causing them pain. If it's just, did it pop or not? And that's all you follow it up with, your patient's going to assume there was something about that.
Yeah.
But if you do a quick stretch, regardless of cavitation, you recheck that cervical AROM, it feels better and they got more. Who cares?
Yep.
Your patient doesn't care. Maybe we care a little too much. Yeah. And that leads to over high amplitude force development when we're chasing that.
Which can be intimidating. And too, from like you said, who's it for? And if you're trying to create, and I think too, this is an interesting conversation from a patient lens, because first of all, the specificity stuff, and trying to be overly that is probably more about the operator. And again, not that great for the patient. Yep. And the other thing too, I'm thinking about from a patient lens and just being intimidated by, this is a physical thing. I mean, like when you're doing a lumbar, it's a very physical activity. And just speaking about, again, the advantages of maybe being a smaller operator, maybe being a smaller female, from a patient perspective, that's got to feel very approachable. Hey, I don't think Britt's going to hurt me. She's, not in stature. I'm not concerned. You get a 6'5" dude about to drop on you and your back's in pain. That's probably a bit intimidating. So I wonder if there's not a positive to being a smaller operator from like a patient comfort psychologically perspective of you approach. I've never thought about this, but I wonder. This episode is brought to you by Jane, a practice management software and EMR that I use to help keep things running smoothly behind the scenes. When I first started looking for a practice management tool, I wanted something that felt like a teammate, not just more tech to figure out, and that's why I switched to Jane. One of the things I love most about Jane, the support team. You get unlimited help from real humans, even on Saturdays by phone, email, or chat, all at no extra cost. It's easy to learn about Jane in your own time too. Jane's guide is packed with helpful tips and updates, and it's always growing. Maybe best of all, Jane has a wonderful community of practitioners, so even if you're running a solo practice, you don't have to feel like you're doing it all alone. If you're curious about what Jane can do for you and your practice, head to jane.app/demo, and if you're ready to get started, use our code ICEPT2MO for a 2-month grace period on your new account.
I bet.
I
think so.
That person's not going to hurt me.
I think so in my clinical experience. I mean, think about just like when I treat women, I'm assuming, and sometimes they're telling me this directly, like, I feel like I can talk to you in a different way than I can talk to a male provider.
Sure.
And maybe there's nothing more to it. Maybe it's just, you look like me.
Yep.
There's some sort of unspoken connection there. But I think that's a thing. I mean, I think if there's an intimidation factor as a physical therapist, watching a big guy manipulate or get manipulated by that person, there's got to be for our patient. That power differential's there already, and trying to break down that barrier. I think PTs do this really well.
Yep.
They're not walking around in our lab coats.
Totally.
But breaking down that power differential and making sure that we can really connect with our patients. I'm sure that there's something to that.
For sure.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming you've heard from participants in your class over the years how nice it was to have someone that looks a little bit more like them in an area where nobody ever does.
Yes. Yeah, that's big. And something I noticed even when I was TAing your course back in the day or TAing with Justin is, who goes to who to ask questions.
We talked about that all the time.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
At break, a bunch of the gals will come up to you. And we should have been so much more acutely observant of that even earlier.
Yeah. Yeah. But it's nice because they're telling me things that maybe they don't feel as comfortable with.
Yep.
Or they're just like, hey, like they start to believe they can do it because they're seeing it. Yeah. And all of those thoughts I had early on of like, this head is huge, my hands are tiny. Like, where do I put my hands? Like, do I get on that segment or do I leverage the lever that we're using to move the neck? At first, it's easy to just believe I can't do it. And I become my own problem.
Right.
And that's an easy assumption when everyone doing it around you looks different than you.
Yep.
But then you see someone who's small and like not that muscularly impressive,
Yes.
getting the job done, and then you start to believe it, and that's where it all goes from there.
That's so huge. I remember through my fellowship training, Julie Whitman, who is not only an amazing human and friend, but an incredible instructor. She removed that excuse for a lot of gals.
Yeah.
A lot of gals. Well, of course,
It's a little
Tim
gut
can,
check.
you know what I mean? Of course, Rob can do it. His hands are 5 feet long.
Yeah.
You know, and then Julie would go up there and crush it. And all of a sudden, the ladies, it was like, hey, clearly doable. And how great, like, to have that barrier. Well, it's not just that, you know?
Yeah, that's huge. Yeah, because if you believe it, it's real.
Totally.
And if you don't believe it, I mean, what's the likelihood you spend the extra time it takes to pursue a skill that you don't even think is achievable?
You don't think is achievable.
Yeah, you're just not, or you're just gonna do what already feels comfortable or what feels doable.
Yep.
And so really, like, man, the privilege of getting to train up with y'all and get lots and lots of reps on this has helped me, obviously, as a clinician and as a teacher. But just continuing to hammer these different techniques on different body types and realizing, like, a lot of those barriers I thought were physical barriers kind of go away as the technique development and the skill acquisition and figuring out how to be faster as that comes up and getting over that hump. And it starts with, like, is this for me or not?
Totally.
And, like, who am I seeing doing this?
I love that. Have you encountered an area that with your size and stature you can't get, or have you found a way throughout the entire spine that you can move whatever you need to on whoever you need to?
I think I think for all of us, there's just certain, like, body size mismatches at a certain point where I'm probably delivering a mid-range quick stretch, and I might not be able to just, there's only so much speed development I can create. I'm thinking about, like, bigger dudes, sometimes lumbar manips or like TLJ manips, where I just don't have the control body size wise to get the job done how I'd like to.
Yep.
But the nice thing about that is this is a tool in my toolkit.
Totally.
I've got other techniques. The evidence says, hey, even if I hit something up in the T-spine, there's widespread downstream effects. Maybe I don't have to get after that TLJ, or maybe I'm having the patient learn how to do this to themselves with a tool like a foam roller or something else. Maybe I'm moving on to a different manual therapy technique with the same intention.
Totally.
Yeah.
In your clinical practice, how much time is generally carved out to that? I mean, you teach us all over the country. You've gotten this incredible skill set. If I actually watched you practice, you know, for a given patient, you know, on average, you know, neck or back pain, I mean, how much time is allocated to manual therapy with this expertise you have versus maybe the loading and the education, the other components of your treatment?
You know, my bias is still, despite teaching a manual therapy course, very fitness forward. And the nice thing is, I think that expectation is starting to shift in our patients. You know, when they've tried the manual therapy stuff, they've seen that other provider, and they're coming to us for the strength training. Like, I'm starting to hear that more. Like, instead of Britt, I know I should be stretching, I'm starting to hear Britt, I know I should be strength training. I'm like, ooh. Oh, okay. Who are you following on Instagram?
Okay.
Like, I can run with that positive expectation for what I know is really what I want to get to. So you might think I'm manual therapying people all day long, and I'm not. Like, it is a tool. It's a tool I leverage a lot early on in the plan of care. I love that irritable, I threw my back out last week person, because they're going to get better. And all my job is to not get in their way. Not to create a whole narrative about how their movement coordination is trash, because of course it is, they're in pain. How their muscle recruitment is bad and their strength is poor, because of course it is, because they're in pain. And instead, just giving them some movements that feel comfortable, leveraging manual therapy judiciously early on, because the evidence is very clear in the spine. That's what patients want. That's what leverages long-term better outcomes. And I have some manual therapy techniques that don't take me that long. Like manipulation. And so when I'm in a fast-paced clinic environment, like, I can't massage people all day long. Like, I can't do that. I will do it. I like it. I'll use other tools to help me get the job done, and tools maybe that my patients can get for themselves. I'm like, hey, this, like, cupping thing, like, I got this kit on Amazon for $30. Like, you can get this too. And now you can do this. So I like stuff like that. But I love manipulation because it takes 90 seconds.
What a great point. Like, because so many folks, I think, pair these techniques with more of like a cash-based, out-of-network, whatever setting. One could argue the opposite is where the value is.
Yeah.
If you're in a higher volume environment where you're kind of hustling along, having something that takes a couple hundred milliseconds and gives you a bang for your buck is massive.
It's huge. And it's huge because, I think a lot of PT, we've watched the pendulum swing from throw a patient on the table, throw a bunch of modalities on them, and that's what physical therapy is.
Yeah.
To, wow, the evidence really seems to say that creating resiliency and fitness and kind of holistic lifestyle change is the way.
Yep.
And so through that pendulum swing, we've seen this like anti-manual therapy movement. Yeah. And I think it makes sense. We are course correcting.
Yeah.
From like, it's all about our magical hands and healing people. And that's good and healthy. And where the spine evidence is very clear is we've got to combo both.
Yeah.
If we take patients and they would do well with manual therapy and we just give them exercise and we do a comparative study, whether it's a small review or a big systematic review, it's very clear patients do better with both. Yeah. So develop some manual therapy skills and tools that you can do as a busy outpatient PT in an insurance-based system, like manipulation, that have pretty widespread effects. And then my patient hasn't spent 30 minutes on the table with me. I've had a chat about how their day's going, how their week's going, what's going on with their life. Yeah. I've set a game plan for their training. I've talked about graded exposure to whatever the thing is we're trying to build tolerance to. And I've done some manual therapy. And the patient, when they're thinking about what was the vast majority of that session, it's very little table time. Yeah. And it was a lot of talking about how to reframe this thing, creating a game plan that's specific to me, and probably a good 20 to 30 minutes moving out in the gym. Yeah. And I make it very clear to my patients, the order of operations is I'm doing this to help you tolerate the movement, the exercise, the functional activity that you need to improve. And then we go do that thing, and we use the little table time to facilitate that.
Oh, I love that. I love that you just said it's a healthy course correction. Yeah. Right? That it's okay that it swung over here. Yeah. And yes, it developed some anti-manual therapy vibes, but some of that might have been needed. We got a little bit too far the other direction. Yeah. That's fantastic.
We're not that special.
Yeah, exactly. Take it easy, people. Yeah. Britt, I never do this at the end of the episode, and at least not regularly, but I think there's going to be a lot of listeners who are like, man, I really want to take a course from her specifically. Nothing against the dudes, but maybe there's a smaller female out there that think I'd like to see her do that and ask her these questions. We don't publish the faculty member on the ICE Physio website. No. Is there somewhere that they could reach out? They can always email info@ice.physio. I will always answer them and find out which ones you're teaching. But is there an email or somewhere they can reach out to you? Like, hey, Britt, I see this total spine thrust course. Does that happen to be you? So that maybe they can coordinate seeing a course that you're doing.
Yes, just hit me up on Instagram.
Okay. Yeah. What's your handle over there?
Dr. Britt _LADE. And you'll see me if you go to the ICE Physio page, because we're posting through that. But yeah, that's a public account.
Great.
And you know what? Just follow my PT account if you're a PT. You don't need to. I have a personal account if you want to see my dog. Great. But I have them separated for reasons. Yeah. So shoot me a message on Instagram. Cool. And I'm happy to tell you, like, hey, I'm going to be here this year.
Love that. Yeah. Awesome. Britt, thank you so much.
Awesome.